Okay. So Warren Buffett said, value is what you get, price is what you pay. And of course, Benjamin Franklin, he must have had a bad experience at one point. Bitterness of poor quality remains long after the sweetness of a low price. I always like Red Adair says, you know, it's expensive to hire a professional, but wait until you hire an amateur. That's kind of funny. But Warren Buffett says, you know, pricing is power. If you know, you got to know your price. It tells you everything about your product, your service, and your brand. Kind of interesting quotes. So why I do these quotes is for you to think about pricing in these regard. Think about what Warren Buffett is saying. This is one of the most important decisions you make for your company. It can make or break your company. What's the value of pricing? Well, it's to maximize profits. Yes, obviously. But it doesn't always mean a higher price. It doesn't always mean a lower price. And maximize process has a lot to do with inventory turns too. And that's why I had inventory turns on there. It's understanding customer behavior. What segment are you in? Last time and during the homework exercises, we did a lot of perceptual maps, and a lot of you priced what your price was or value was. You can improve competitiveness if you really know your price versus your competitor, and you respond to market changes. So here's 3 different pricing models. Actually, there's 4 on here. Does anybody do, I'm going to ask you in a homework exercise, cost plus pricing? And I'm going to illustrate who does cost pricing plus pricing on the next page, and then competitive pricing on the next page after that, and value pricing. And there's supply, demand, and balance pricings, and we maybe have all run into that. Cost plus pricing is when you say, I embroider caps, or I'm in the t-shirt business, and I take my product, I buy it for $10, and I mark it up 3x, and I achieve a margin without too much understanding of the competitors. But it's basically, what's your cost, mark it up. Sometimes in the construction industry, it's like, okay, the job is 200,000. I want to make 20%. I'm going to put 20% on 200,000, and that's my price. Competitor pricing is where you're really finely attuned and you have very, very good, or you undercut your competitors. There's a lot of companies that are very attuned to competitive pricing. I'll show you some majors that do that. They're just fighting for market share. Now, to be a competitive pricer, you have to have the best supply chain. You have to buy at the very best price.
Cuéntame si ya está confirmado 100% real, no fake.
Mute your call.
If you're not buying at the best price, then you can't price competitively, obviously. Value pricing, and I was the pricing director for Xerox worldwide at one point in my career as a mid-level career person. We did value pricing, or we'd like to think we did value pricing. We set our prices 10 to 15% higher than anybody else because we thought the Xerox name, the value was there, the service was there. And the other reason is we set the umbrella. If we had moved our prices down, everybody else would move their prices down. Then we move our prices down again, and everybody else moves their prices down, and you crash the market. Supply-demand imbalance, who knows what that is? Anybody, any takers on an example?
Supplies in the band is something people need right now, daily, or whatever have you.
Yeah, that's a really good answer. I'm thinking of the gasoline crisis. I don't know. I'm old enough to remember, you know, a couple decades ago, the long lines, you couldn't get gasoline. And it was like, I'm sorry. Now, right now we have a gasoline prices. Prices are starting to go back up. But, you know, it's like whatever we can get on gasoline. And if, you know, the war in Ukraine has hurt that, gas prices went up. But anything that's in short supply, maybe it was toilet paper during COVID. Right? Like you'd pay anything to get some toilet paper or some tissues when COVID. So that's like an imbalance, and companies take advantage of that. But I think the best way to do this is to illustrate some examples. So this is just a summary of what I was saying. There's cost plus, it's the markup model, competitive pricing, and value-based pricing. But all pricing models, look at the notes, must consider the overall profitability of the company and the objectives. Also, price for one customer may be different than a price for another customer. You know, car dealers. You think you paid the same price as the next person? Airline tickets, that's notorious. You can have the people on the same plane paying completely different prices for airline tickets. Government bid prices. Sometimes you will do a low price just to get rid of inventory. I'm going to talk about cost plus and some examples. We did talk about retail stores. So for instance, retail stores, suppose you're a clothing store, and I know some people who worked in it, so I have an example because I talked to them. You know, they want to get a 3x markup. So what do they do initially? Anybody? Well, the first thing they do is they mark it up 4x because the average has got to be 3x. And then they have a sale and they're down to what they expected is 3x. Then they have another sale and end the season and they're down to 2x. So they're changing their markup depending on season, depending on what's selling, what's not selling. I went into a men's store last year, and guess what? The same shirt was different. I think it was Tommy Bahama, but the same shirt was a different price per color. Like a blue shirt was more expensive than a pink shirt. Same shirt, just different color. And it was like $10 more. I didn't understand it, but that's the way this retail store was pricing. Construction companies typically do cost plus pricing. You've heard of that. Manufacturing companies can do that too. They buy the raw materials, they want a 20% markup or 30, and they do that. Consulting firms do that. What do we make per hour? What do we, you know, how much are we making? What's a lawyer doing? Food and beverages could use cost plus. But there's a lot of factors. There's competition, demand, perceived value, product, and service. Really, you should take all that into consideration. If you're on the cost plus markup model, then you might not understand your competition. And maybe it shouldn't be a 3x markup. Maybe it's a 3.5% markup because that's what the competitor, you know, you're higher than the competitor. Competitive pricing models. Does anybody, I shop at Walmart once in a while. Does anybody shop at Walmart? Boy, they got the best prices, right? On some items. They may not be known for luxury, but they have anything you want to buy. Suppose you want to buy electronics. Then they probably got a really good price on electronics. Basically, they have a good price on everything. Amazon. They use a competitive pricing. They're constantly monitoring their competitors and adjusting their prices. They have a model behind scenes that you don't see that's adjusting, you know, telling them what the pricing should be. Airlines, as I said, they use a pricing model to attract price-sensitive customers. So they always say, buy airline tickets on Tuesday, or, you know, or buy them a month in advance. Fast food chains McDonald's has to compete against Burger King. All right. Now, if you're one of these, you better make sure that McDonald's or Burger King is buying at their beef at a competitive price. By the way, how does McDonald's make their money?
Off of their real estate and licensing.
Yeah, that's very good. That's true. That's true. They make it off their real estate and licensing in the long run. In the short time, they make it off the soft drinks. That's why they bundle everything in their pricing, because the cost of the hamburger, you know, the beef is going up, the bun, everything they put on it, you know, the French fries. It's like, you know, you go in there to buy the hamburger, the French fries is the sizzle, and then the cup of Diet Coke, which costs you, I don't know, $1.95 or $1.55, depending on the size, costs them a nickel, right? So bundling all that is how they can make a lot of money. The next one is value pricing. Can anybody name a value pricing company? Don't be shy. There's no grades here. I
Publix.
mark on a curve. Okay, we'll give you a break. Value pricing. Apple. How much does it cost to get a iPhone? My gosh, you know, I think I have an iPhone 11. It cost me $600. I don't know what the new ones are going for, the 14s. Tesla, they were pricing at a premium. By the way, they just lowered their prices, Tesla, I think to get under the tax break that the government gives you for electric cars. Starbucks, as I said the other day, you could buy Starbucks for $5, $6, or you could go to Dunkin' Donuts. But they're premium price. Rolex, they're premium price. And Rolex controls their prices. They control their prices down to the dollar worldwide. Doesn't matter where you are. If you're at an airport store with no tax, then you can get a discount because you're not paying the tax on it at an airport import store. Louis Vuitton. Does everybody recognize these as, wow, it's a Louis Vuitton? They didn't price it because it was a handbag or a purse. They priced it because it was a Louis Vuitton. You know, it's still got leather, it's still got a zipper. I don't know if the zipper is any better on the Louis Vuitton or the handle or the, you know, or the leather than any other magazine. Then it might be a little bit better, but is it, you know, $1,200 better? But you really got to have a strong brand image. And you notice most of these companies are innovators. They're at the edge. They're creating the market. They're driving the market. They're at the edge. They're valuable companies because of their strong brand image, because they're innovators, because they can set the market price being there. I want to talk a little bit about discounts. You know, there are tons of ways to have a discount. By the way, I'm always the consultant who says, raise your price. I told you about my donut people, right? They went from $4.25, maybe they're at $5 or $5.25 right now. But, you know, then they started discount, not with donuts, but with donut holes, which were the leftovers from their process. Or buy 5, you know, or buy 4, we'll give you 5. If you don't have a high price, you don't have discounts. If you build the discount into the retail price that you set, then how are you going to ever discount? So I always like to have a high price and then offer bundle discounts, volume discounts for people who buy more than, you know, 4 donuts, seasonal discounts, how many times we go through different seasons in the retail industry, and you can get some, you know, winter coats at 20% off. Promotional discounts, maybe when you introduce a product to get it started. Bundle discounts, you know, you get the haircut and you get the bottle of shampoo with it, whatever you can, you know, bundle. Trade discounts, there's a lot of trade discounts. Probably everybody hears of bar employees or restaurant employees on Thursday nights usually get a trade discount for, they call it in the biz. Anybody in the business, or it could be an organization or an association. You could give a discount to all the people, all the retailers who are in Coral Gables or Lincoln Road. It's a Lincoln Road discount, or part of an association or a trade organization. Loyalty discounts. You know, it's easier to keep, I keep on saying it's easier to keep a customer and get more money from them than it is. Okay, a restaurant could give a free meal. You could give out a free coffee for every 10 you buy. Coupons, Buyers Club, AARP, and Automobile Club of America. So there's a lot of ways to give discounts. However, if you set your price wrong, as I said, and I'll repeat, you know, then forget discounts, because you just find yourself, you know, chasing value and lowering your overall price objective. And of course, there's other discounts that you give for government bids. And, you know, in the copier industry, every 2 years there was a government bid, and every 2 years there was a different vendor. Why? Because nobody made money on government bids, because the government had the power to get the lowest price. So somebody would sell really, really low to them. not make any money on it, but it might have been important to us or the Japanese customer to keep our volumes because we got to keep the manufacturing plant moving. Any questions on discounts or the various specific ways to price? These are just the overall top level strategies. They're not necessarily the specifics of how you price, but we'll get into some of that.
So Mark,
Hey, Mark.
I'm a hairstylist and you know, I make the wigs or whatever have you. So at one point I was doing my bundles where I was doing them by percentage.
Mhm.
But then I felt it was too much. So I decided to just put everything at 100% markup, which I feel is better because for me in my business, I have to think about the shipping, the labels, the
Total cost.
labeling, yeah, everything, the total cost. So I decided everything, is that okay? Or it depends, every business varies.
Well, every business kind of varies, you know.
Okay.
And, you know, well, I would, you know, like you did your perceptual map and we kind of talked about that, right?
Right.
We said you want to be the value added. I mean, you want, you know, you're more expensive than,
Mhm.
you know, but there was somebody even more expensive than you because because it was the texture of the real hair or something. But, you know,
Our texture is actually the same, it's just their markup is just higher.
right.
Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, so you might have a few more customers, but I'm going to show you how to determine that
All right.
in a
Awesome.
few slides.
Okay.
Okay, like what happens if you raise your price? What happens if you're lower price? What's your contribution margin? That's where you're going to need your pen.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
For those of us who are doing cost plus, what is your recommended percentage of discount built into the cost?
Not discount, you mean load. In other words, 20% higher than the cost or 30% higher. See, I kind of hate cost plus because it doesn't talk about your competitive position, which is why we had you do your perceptual maps. What's your value? What's their value?
Okay.
And I mean, you can say, well, typically, you know, that in a certain industry, we're doing cost plus. In the building industry, as a general contractor, and we charge everybody 20% more. But 20% more on what? Maybe you're buying your lumber at the wrong price. You know, maybe you can charge 30% more. How would you know? Well, are you positioned as the luxury builder? Or are you positioned as the builder who is building tract homes? You know, so cost plus is okay, sort of, kind of, but if you kind of do cost plus with a sense of value, what's the value? I mean, at Xerox, we used to look at, you know, the value of our copier. So we would go, oh, we're 5 copies per minute faster. We have better image quality. They have, you know, better connectivity. We have this, they have that. We went through each of the feature functions of the copier, compared it to our competitors, you know, and then we put a 10% increase on it just because we're Xerox, 5 to 10. And said, yeah, okay, we're going to sell it at 11,000. They're selling it at 10,000, but we're going to add 10% to ours just because we got the name. So if you have the name, you provide the umbrella for everybody else. Even in the wig industry, they're providing an umbrella for you. If they lower their prices, oh my gosh, then you have to lower yours, and then you know, what you buy for wigs is going to crash, at least in the local market. I mean, everybody is individual. You all have different products to price, right? But I'm just saying, don't go through it blindly. There should be a process. Okay. So I'm going to ask you questions. Now, these aren't the questions for your they're sort of the questions, but I will tell you the exercises at the end of the class, what the exercises for the week's homework is. But it's going to be, what's your pricing model? That's definitely one. What's your discount mechanism? Have you thought through your discount mechanism? Like I told you the example of the retail store that, you know, starts off with 4X, they want to be at 3X, but they know at the end of the season, they're going to have to be at 2X. You have unique prices for different customers. How do you discount? Do you bundle? Do you compare with competitors or alternatives? How do you control your average or achieved prices? It's almost like, you know, in the car industry, you have the list price and then you have the real price. So what's your list price? What's your real price? You could be selling candy, you know, at $50, but then, you know, you're giving it away, you're bundling, you're all that, and it's not at $50 a pound. It turns out to be 35 is your real price when you add up the cash register at the end of the day. Pricing is so important. It's basically what's going to be driving your business and your revenue. So this is price elasticity of demand. And I don't think I had anybody recall that they went through this concept before. Did anybody?
No, that's my first time
No.
here.
No, I see a lot of no's first time. There is something called price elasticity of demand. There's also price elasticity of supply. I'm not going to go through the price elasticity of supply because it has to do with manufacturing products and how many you sell. This is price elasticity of demand. So it talks about your customers and the relationship to how much they're buying in the industry or from you in the market relative to price. So there are elastic products and there's inelastic products. And I'm going to give you examples of both elastic and inelastic. Okay, so this is, according to Maynard, Keyes, who is one of the premier economists years ago, it is the most important law of economics. And Peter Drucker, who's another well-known marketeer, economist, it determines whether you thrive or you go bankrupt. Simple as that. It can make or break a business. That's what Porter says. He's another very famous person. And Adam Smith, way many years ago, said, you know, it's essential to understand. And Warren Buffett, we all know who he is. It's essential if you want to be successful in the marketplace. So this concept you should really come to terms with, okay? Because where you set your price and whether you increase it or decreases is going to determine whether you're making any money. So let me take this slow. Price elasticity is the change in consumption relative to his price. The change in consumption, the change in demand relative to its price. It's the percent change versus the percent change in demand versus divided by the percent change in price. It's not the absolute numbers. It's the percentage number of demand divided by percent change in price. So if you have a 10% change in demand and a 5% change in price, that would be 2. 10% divided by 5% is 2. Then your elasticity would be equal to 2. I'm going to give you more examples, so don't worry. Does anybody kind of understand that? Or I'm going to tell you a lot more. So let's just go on. Okay, so if a product is greater than 1, like in my last example, then it's elastic. If it's less than 1, it's inelastic. If it's 0, don't worry about it because you're never going to come up to 0, but it's, you know, completely inelastic. And if it's 1, it's unitarily elastic. 1 is a 45-degree angle on the chart that says 10% over 10% is 1, right? So you have an equal change in demand for an equal change in price. I lowered the price 10%, the demand went down 10%, right? If it's 0, there's very few products that are 0. I can only think of 1, which is it doesn't matter what the price is. And that may be the lunar rocket, right? Something, you're only building one lunar rocket, and doesn't matter whether it's $1 billion or $2 billion, we're going to build it, right? Kind of that kind of deal. Of course, there's always overruns, but it's hard to think of things that are, where there doesn't matter what the price is, we're going to do it. I'm sure there's a few examples, but I really stretched to find any examples. So the availability of a substitute product affects elasticity. There are substitute products, right? Let me go through an example. You're considering buying a new washing machine, but the current one works, it's just old. Because of inflation, the price of the washing machine, what goes up? What do? What would you people do? What would you do?
Wait. We wait until the price goes
Exactly. You wait until the prices come down, unless it's broken, right? So it's working. Okay, I'm just going to wait. The prices come down, there'll be a sale. The less discretionary a product is, the less quality demand will fall. Inelastic examples include luxury items. People who buy Rolexes because the price went up another $1,000 will probably still buy the Rolex. People buying Louis Vuitton are really not concerned if it's a $2,000 purse or if it's a $2,500 purse, right? Because they have the economic needs. Addictive products are inelastic. What's an addictive product? Cigarettes. For some people, alcohol. By the way, there's some things like an HP printer doesn't work without HP inkjet. The cartridges. Why are those cartridges so expensive? They almost give you the printer and then you got to buy the cartridges, right? At $45 a cartridge, and you're addicted to that printer, right?
With that little bit of ink.
Yeah, it's just a little bit of ink. They make tons of money. They make all their money on the cartridges. Believe me, I know. I've been in the business. So addictive products, I'm going to show you a bunch of products. Okay? But that's the theory, right? This is going to, I'm going to show you 2 more examples, but I'm just showing you. So perfectly inelastic is the red one, right? I said, I don't know what, it doesn't matter what price you pay. Price is on the vertical axis, the horizontal axis. The Q is the quantity demanded. It's the demand versus price, right? Perfectly inelastic is the blue line, so don't worry about those 2 lines. And the green line is, as I said, Unitarian, elastic, 10%, 10%. You see it's a 45% angle. What we're going to worry about is where you are. So you're either a steeper angle, like the yellow, which is very inelastic, or the purple one, which is very elastic. So if you do the math, the purple one always is going to be, like a 3, a 4, a 2, right? And you can see the yellow one could be a 0.1. Okay? Because remember, the center line, the green one is 1. So below that, less than 1, higher than that, more than 1. Excuse me, higher than that, less than 1, below that, greater than 1. Purple is greater than 1, yellow, if you're in that yellow, and you don't necessarily have to be that, you can be someplace in the green. Let me give you an example. This is elastic demand, okay? So I changed my price from 50 cents pennies to 60 pennies. That's a change of 10%, right? My demand went from, so over there on the calculations, I got 0.1. My demand went from 100 to 50, right? So it's elastic. 0.5 divided by 0.1 equals 5. Right? So my demand changed faster, percent change faster than my prices. Questions? I want to stop here for a minute and see if you're all understanding this.
I still need clarification, but I'm following.
Okay. Okay.
I have a question here based on time. Like, what's the course of time that we're looking at for the price change and for the demand changes? Like when we're trying to calculate this for ourselves?
You could offer a coupon that's good for 60 days, and it's a 20% off coupon, right? Measure your demand before the coupon and measure your demand after the coupon. So now you have 2 points on the graph. Before the coupon, I sold 100, you know. And now what am I going to sell?
Right. So
Well,
what I'm
this was
trying
a price increase, but you could do a price increase, a decrease too, right? You could go from 60 to 50 cents. So it's
Right.
at 60 cents, I was 50, and then I went to, I did a coupon and I went to 100. You could,
Okay.
you know, every time you take a marketing action, you ought to understand, well, what do I expect as far as demand out of this?
Okay, so I guess my question is that initial point, right, for the demand or the quantity,
Mhm.
that demand can vary from month to month. So what I'm trying to figure out is, am I looking at 60 days prior? This is what the demand was in those 60 days, or am I looking at like lifetime business
No,
wide?
you're looking at a shorter time. I mean, like the quarter of the year, although there is seasonality in a lot of your businesses, or in some of your business, perhaps. There's something called seasonality, and I'm sure there's mathematical programs that you could do to, you know, to get an average and get the seasonality. You could do a rolling 3 months average of your demand, for instance. In other words,
And
take
that
your
demand, I'm so sorry, it's traffic here, so I can't really tell if I'm talking or not. But the question I'm asking also about the demand, I just want to make sure I'm doing the math right. This quantity or the demand is actual clients that have been closed, contracted, paid for the service, or
Yes.
are we? Okay, just wanted to make sure. Okay.
I had 100 clients. Now I have 50 clients, and because I raised the price from 50p to 60p, 60 cents or $60 or 60 pounds or whatever you want to classify it. Yeah, and I actually, the calculation is actually wrong because I raised the price 20%, right? So it's 0.5 divided by 0.2, which is 2.5. I should correct that. Okay.
Mark, I have a question. Just so that I can make sure that I'm saying it correctly. So if we have a price decrease and the demand goes higher, that's not inelasticity, correct? That's elastic.
If it's elastic, if it's greater than 1.
Okay.
If it's less than 1, it's inelastic. But just, you know, I made a mistake here. 50 going to 60 is points over 5, which is 20% change. So it should be 0.5 divided by 0.2. Sorry about that. I didn't catch that. Let me go on to examples. Airline tickets. You know, you can say they're elastic. I mean, I don't care if I fly on JetBlue or Southwest. Maybe I care when I get to some lower air carriers, Frontier or something like that. But you know, an $80 ticket on Frontier sounds pretty good too. So I might switch, right? So it's kind of elastic that way. Fast food. Now, are you going to pay $8 for a McDonald's burger or $6 for a, you know, Burger King burger? You might start thinking, oh, I'm going to cheap, or maybe I'm not even going to buy a burger all, and I'll switch. There's substitutes. I'm going to go to Kentucky Fried Chicken, right? Clothing you can delay. You know, it's like, oh my gosh, I don't really need the extra suit right now. Cars, in the short term, they're elastic because you can delay. In the long term, they're probably inelastic. You know, like, because you're going to have to buy a car sometime. But in the short term, you can delay that purchase. You can fix up your own car. And electronics, you're always sharp. You know, you're always going to Best Buys for your smartphone. You're always looking for deals, right? You're always trying to entertainment. Now, this is interesting. Movie tickets, right? You might say, well, I don't want to spend $15 for a movie ticket. I'm just going to, you know, stay at home and watch Netflix. Okay. Grocery items, we're always shopping for better groceries, you know. Whole Foods, unless you're, you know, wedded to Whole Foods because you have a lot of disposable income, you might shop at Publix or you might go to Costco, right? Gasoline. In the short term, you know, you got to, in the short term, you got to pay the price, you know, if you're driving. But, you know, you could take public transportation, you could start switching, you could buy more fuel efficient vehicles, you could carpool. There's reasons, you know, perhaps that it's elastic. Let's talk about inelastic, right? So here, you know, I changed my demand by a little over 10%, not, you know, because it went 8 points out of 88. So it was really 11%. And my price, I changed my price 40%, right? So it's 0.11, something like that, divided by 0.4, right? So it's 0.25, 26, something like that in the rounding error. So it's inelastic because it's less. Okay, so your change, it's always the change of demand over change in price as a percentage. Always. What's inelastic products? Medicines. You know, you got to pay for your medicine. You know, insulin, for instance, people who are on insulin have to buy their insulin. Doesn't matter whether it's, you know, $25 or $35, but unfortunately, you know, it spiked up there for a little bit. Utilities, are you going to turn off your electric and gas? Well, I mean, some people have it turned off, but in general, you know, you're going to pay your electric bill, whether it went up $50 or not. Healthcare services, surgery, treatments, you need it, you need it. Tobacco and alcohol are non-essential, but sometimes they can be addictive, you know. And I'm not talking addictive in the bad sense. I'm just saying addictive relative to market. Luxury goods, designer clothes, you know, they're not price sensitive. The Louis Vuitton is not price sensitive. Tina, you had a question?
Yes, in the sense of hair salon, spa, what we consider then that inelastic? Because you know, if the service is good, I'm always willing to pay the price. I don't go to a cheaper salon.
You're not going. So you're an inelastic buyer. I don't know. I kind of thought it might be elastic because you're saying that, not the sense that you say, okay, I'll do it you were on a monthly schedule to go to the salon. You know what? I'll do it every 6 weeks now. Or, you know, I'll do it, you know, instead of 3 times in the first quarter, I'll do it twice. I'll extend it. I won't get you know, I'll spend 2 more weeks. And how does the salon see that? Well, if everybody delays 6 weeks, you know, then they're going to have less value.
Okay.
If their price goes up.
All right. I'm asking a question because of gasoline and Sabine
Okay.
services. Yeah. So
Now here's this is kind of interesting. I said entertainment was elastic because there were alternatives. Like I don't really have to go to the movie. I can see Netflix. Tickets could be inelastic. Why? What happened to the concert tickets post-COVID? I tell you can't find a concert. I looked at Bruce Springsteen concert when he was at the Hard Rock Hotel the other day. What do you think the minimum price I found online? Way up in the balcony. Yes?
$100?
Huh?
100?
Oh, no,
More?
100 won't even get you in the door.
Wow.
600 in the balcony, way up, and 1,000 on the floor for Bruce. Now, there's only one Bruce Springsteen. You're either going to see him when he's in town or you're not, right?
Hey.
What year was this?
2 months ago?
Just like Andrea Bocelli's concert tickets.
Yeah, I mean, you either want to see him or you don't.
Yeah.
You know, and there's enough people that want it that don't mind paying that price. It's unbelievable ticket. If you look at the study of ticket prices, because I like going to concerts, I did not go, by the way, to Bruce Springsteen. I don't get paid that much. So I didn't go. I'd have to give a lot of courses here. You know, so I didn't do it. But a lot of people are buying it and he gets sold out. But there's other performers, you know, sporting events, man, the tickets for the, you know, the Dolphins have gone way up. I don't know, you know, $200 a seat and you're up in the nosebleed.
Nosebleed. Mhm.
Yeah, it's crazy. Time sensitive services, of course, you know, the pipe broke. The toilet is overflowing. They just have to be fixed. So I want to know, is your price elastic or inelastic? What do you think it is? What do you think that relationship is? Do you track volume changes when you offer discounts, or it's, hey, I gave a 10% discount. I have no idea what happened. Things to think through when you're going through this module. I was going to do a group discussion, but I really want to do the extra credit too. And I have a little over an hour, so we still got a lot to go through. But this is everything that in a group you should be asking yourself if you do meet in a group. You know, everything I already kind of said. What's your average price? Are you elastic or inelastic? What do you think you are? Can you estimate it? It's not easy to estimate it, right? But you can look at actions you've taken. When I discounted, this is what happened. When I raised my price, this is what happened. It's so important. I'll show you some math of why that's so important. So I want to just briefly talk about revenue models. We're coming back to pricing, okay? But revenue models, yes.
Hey,
In-
Mark, in certain, your question, are you elastic or inelastic? In certain markets, we're inelastic. Case in point, one of our spa providers, we raised our prices over 200%,
Mhm.
and she paid the price, right?
Yeah.
Because she was already marking us up almost 9x. So when we raised our price, it wasn't a shock to her. But then in direct to consumer, where, you know, we see large jumps in sales when we offer a 30, 40. I think one time we did a 50% off and we sold out of all of our inventory. So
interesting,
can
yeah.
you do both at the same time?
Can you be both with different customer sets? I guess you could be both. It's hard to distinguish if you got one shop shopping. If you have the same website, then it's difficult. You know, you could have a separate website only for certain customers and have a DBA, doing business as. So you could be doing business as 3 different entities under the same LLC or corporation. Let's take the case of Porsche. The Porsche group, we said the other day, they own Audi, or Audi owns Porsche, and they also own Volkswagen, right? So they have 3 different price points, 3 different sets of customers, but they're doing business under 3 different names. You know, there's Lexus and Toyota, right? Infiniti and Nissan. But they separated it out. So revenue model is how, first let me go through what Peter Drucker says. Revenue is important, but profit is everything. There's a connection between revenue and profit, but it's not a direct connection. Yes, there is a direct connection, but there's other ways of getting there. It's called inventory turns. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. So, you know, you can have a lot of revenue, but no profit because your margins are zero, right? Or your inventory is high and you're not turning your revenue, you're not turning your inventory, so you have a bad cash position, even though you have some revenue, but everything, you have so much you bought. I have a lot of people that bought a lot of things. I have people that bought 150,000 of something and they're trying to get rid of it, and somebody who bought 200,000 of something. Now, revenue is important, but they put all this on the balance sheet. 150 in one case, 1,000 and 200 in the other case. They have a little revenue, but it was all about the inventory they have and the cash they burn. So it's about having a lot of profit and cash. Okay. Here's a guy that says, Barry Diller says, the revenue model is for content companies that have been blown to bits. When I was at Xerox, you know, I actually won the award for excellence at Xerox for having leading a team that came up with a concept of putting all the service revenue in the cartridges, right? So service revenue at Xerox was collected by clicks. Every time, you know, you made a copy, we made, you know, 0.001 cent, right? So instead of that, we put all the components that failed into a cartridge and we sold the cartridge for $300 or $500, and we didn't, you know, independent of the number of clicks. Now the cartridge had a failure rate, but it blew up the industry because now there was a whole different way of collecting the same revenue. And the customer felt better because they didn't have to fill out, there used to be this thing called meter cards. You know, every month we asked them for their billing card. How many copies did you make? So profit, cash, you know, revenue is great. Profit is even better, and having a lot of cash is the best. Cash is king. But there is a revenue model, and this just 2 seconds on this. What are we trying to do here? We're asking you how you create customer value, how you satisfy existing needs, or in a couple of your cases, how you create and satisfy new needs as a leader, how you market it, how you brand it, what are solutions, what are your positioning, and then how you sell it. Online, offline. That's basically what the course is trying to take you through. So it's a framework for generating income. I always want to tell you, ongoing revenue streams can be a significant company value. A lot of companies are sold because of their client list, and more importantly, what's the ongoing revenue? Do you have service revenue? If you can find ways to keep on charging the same customer through a warranty contract, you know, even if you're selling wigs, you can say, hey, for $10 extra, a year or a month, or $20 a month, or 10 or 5, you know, we will guarantee this wig. Every time you go to Walmart, and I just went there and I bought a toaster. Guess was the first, and it was like a $25 toaster. Guess what? When I went to check out, the first thing that the computer asked me. I know you know this.
Do you want a warranty?
Exactly.
I was just gonna say.
Do you want a warranty? Ongoing revenue. You know, I mean, I bought a computer last year and all I get is ads for, oh, your computer warranty is up. Do you want another 2-year warranty? You know, Microsoft, when they sell Excel, Microsoft 360s, ongoing revenue. It's a cash cow. They just create revenue after revenue after revenue. The value of the company is in that revenue that is ongoing. Somebody sees your operations and say, wow, you created a revenue machine. So anything you can do to create the same customer coming over and over again, or billing them, anything you do creatively is what you want to do. Some of you can't do that. You know, if you're in the food industry, you're selling candies, you're selling things that, you know, they have to come back. That's kind of a different situation. But how did the food industry create ongoing revenue? Food clubs, you know, the blue box that gets delivered to your door. right? You sign up for a yearly contract for food delivered to your door from, I don't know, there's half a dozen firms doing that now. You know, you see them advertised on TV. They, you know, every week they ship you a meal. There's a lot of diet plans, Weight Watchers, you know, lose 20 pounds, sign up for our yearly plan. And
Yeah,
of course,
wine clubs are notorious for ongoing revenue streams because you know you go to the vineyard, you spend money while there, and then you pay to join the club, and then you still, I mean, you get a discount, you know, every quarter or so, but it's a continuing revenue stream.
yeah. Even, I mean, I remember the days of vinyl records. I think they're coming back a little bit. But there used to be clubs to get the latest vinyl record, you know, the LP record. And you could join a monthly club and they send you the record every month that
And
you
they're
chose.
definitely coming back. A lot of people are using them as collector's item now, though.
Right. I don't know what happened to mine. I had some really good ones. But you got to think of ways, how do you create ongoing revenue? By the way, it makes the job of growing your revenue stream much easier because now you got ongoing revenue. Like at Xerox, 60% of our revenue was ongoing by service and supplies, the toner, the service. So we had to worry about the other 40% because that was a one-time sale. So how do you generate revenue? You know, I'm just going to quickly go through this, but yeah, I still have an hour. Retail segment, loyalty programs, upsell, cross-sell, add-on products, service industry, ongoing support and maintenance, subscriptions. You know, if you buy an air conditioner, they're definitely going to sell you a warranty. They're definitely going to ask you, you know, for a warranty on the air conditioner. They're definitely going to sell you, I got to come back every year and change the filter or do something to your heating unit, right? You're bombarded every day with which, you know, for the extra $100 every year, right? Technology, software licenses. We just talked about Microsoft, maintenance and support. You know, you get your computer fixed and they say, okay, you know, it could fail again, but for, you know, $20 a month, we'll always service you. Even right now, there's a lot of companies that, you know, not the original manufacturer, but there's companies that will give you a warranty on home appliances, whatever appliances you have. There's a company and you get calls. We used to get calls all the time on companies that wanted to warranty your car when your original warranty ran out. Okay, hospitality industry, what do? They upsell you room upgrades, right? Beverages, tours and activities if you're at a resort, you know? Go see the dolphins for $50 per person. The cruise industry, right? Where do they make their money? Well, they make their money on the booze, right? Because the cruise industry, you know, you can get some really, really cheap trips now for a 2-day trip, you know, a couple $100. It's cheaper than renting a hotel, but you know, the bill for your food, for your beverages, if you're drinking alcohol, is gonna be $50 a day. Or you want to go see the dolphins or play on the island or do whatever you want to do. That's where they're making a lot of money. You know, restaurants that we talked about, the combo meals, the kids meals, special events, you know, and pubs and restaurants are always selling merch. In other words, the t-shirt, the hat. The pubs have every single pub you go into or brewery, they have their own what they call merch, which is, you know, selling the various polo shirts or whatever they're selling. And I noticed they're usually black and have a picture of a skull and crossbones on it. Okay, I haven't been in that many pubs, but I've been in a few. So what is your revenue model? Do you have only sales income? Can you move at something to sales, to service? How do you capture the revenue? You can capture it, by the way, by outside rental, lease. A lot of people are using rental and lease versus upfront. Why is that important? You could lease equipment, you know, because you get the equipment back if it's a rental, right? Or the lease could be with the purpose of selling. You can lower the costs upfront through these mechanisms too, because you hold the asset. And is your model unique versus your competitors? I talked about my Xerox days. And how else do you capture other revenue, whether it's merch or whatever? How can you capture another 10%? Okay, any questions on that? It was kind of brief.
It was brief,
Ideas?
but I need a more breakdown because I think like in my business, well, eventually I want to start selling like wig care products for the clients to send to take home to maintain their units. Or if they
Mhm.
can't come in person, like it's raining today, and they want to wash the unit, I want to have like a wig kit.
Yeah, exactly. You could have a wig kit.
So I need to learn all this here.
Right. Okay, does everybody know what gross margin is? No? Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about gross margin, and then we're going to talk about contribution margin. I like contribution margin better because it helps you understand pricing better. But gross margin is basically the difference between revenue and the cost of goods sold as a percentage of the revenue. So you see where it says there, gross margin equals revenue less cost of goods sold divided by revenue times 100. Okay, what's cost of goods sold? So what you paid, cost of goods sold is what you paid to either manufacture or buy that product. Okay, so if you generate 500,000 in revenue and you incur cost of goods sold, COGS, of 250, right? Then it would be 500 less 250 divided by 500 times the gross margin, okay? That would be the calculation. Now, every industry has different gross margins. Okay, they can range from 15 to 30% in the grocery business. Now, how much do you think a gross margin is on the can of beans in Publix? Very, very, very low. But they sell a can of beans, they turn over their inventory. It's called inventory turns. They're constantly turning over their inventory. Boom, 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 right? So the velocity, they turn over their beef. You think they let that beef sit there on the shelf for a week? No, they're like, you know, it spoils. They got to get rid of it. They want to turn it. They probably want to turn it 45 times a year, right? The steak is not the same steak that was sitting there 2 weeks ago. It's a different steak. So when you think about your business, if you have low margins but high turns, you can make a lot of money because I'm making 2 cents on a can of beans. Boom, 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 50 times a year. Versus I have a long sales cycle. I bought the piece of equipment and I only sold, it takes me 6 months to make a sale. So that thing is sitting in inventory. So yeah, I have a 90% margin, but I've only sold it twice. It has to do with the efficiency. I want you to think about inventory turns. We'll get to that. That's why that's important. So gross margins are not necessarily good or bad. A high one is always better than a low one, but it depends on what you're selling and what your specialty is. Specialty grocery stores will have, and upscale supermarkets, higher gross margins than a Publix or a Costco. A Costco is about value, moving the product through, cheaper prices, but moving a lot through so they can turn the whole store over every month, 12 times a year. A specialty store, the product may sit. If you go to some Italian specialty stores, that $20 bottle of half a pint of olive oil may sit there for a while, right? But they're charging $20 for it. So it's like I'm charging $20 for it and I'm making 90% margins, but it's going to take me a time to sell. Costco is like, no, I'm going to charge for a lower quality, maybe, but I'm going to charge $5 for that same pint, and I'm going to sell that $5 100 times. Even though my margins are low, I'm selling a lot. Private label products could have higher margins. So it depends on what industry you're in. These are just some examples from various industries, from various sources that you can see. I have retail industry, 25 to 50%, manufacturing, 25 to 35, technology, 60 to 90, and service industries, 50 to 85. So, Adriana, if you're there, I know you have a whole set of IBIS industry reports.
Yeah.
And
I
there's a lot of reports on what your gross margin should be. And I'll give you an example of my donut people again. The average producer of pastries, if they're small, makes like 68%. If they're big, they make like 72%. But that is in a report, and it was specific to Florida. You can get those statistics for your industry by some of these reports. Now, they sell donuts, but they kind of they didn't pick out donuts, but they were in the cake pastry section of the report. It wasn't a report on donuts, it was a report on cakes and pastry. So I said, well, and they were at like 55%. And I said, well, you either got to raise the price or lower your costs. So let's work on both. And they did. They raised the price, and they're still selling just as much, and their gross margin went up into the 65%. Perfect. So you can compare your gross margin to all these sources. Adriana?
Yeah. What your question is? No,
No, I
I
just wanted,
did send the
just-
link to everyone.
Yes, okay, great.
Do you want me
Perfect.
to show an example?
Yeah,
Or do
you
you want to
could.
continue with the class?
I'll continue with the class because I'll probably run out of time. And then maybe at
Continue
the
with
end,
the
we can
class. I'm
show the
gonna put
example.
again the link. I send the
Excellent.
link in the Notion, but I'm gonna send the link in the chat.
Good, excellent. Thank you.
Welcome.
So what are your gross margins? By the way, what's your competitive gross margin? So if you're competing on price, if you're if your pricing model is competitive, then you better know what your gross margins are and be the best at sourcing your product. Otherwise, you're not going to be in business, because competitive models means you're the lowest price producer, or you're competing at the lowest. You get your gross margin by competing on your supply chain and buying at the right price to hold gross margins in the competitive market. Now, contribution margin. I'm going to take this one step further now. Okay, now this is important. A gross margin includes cost of sales. A contribution margin includes everything else. What do I mean, everything else? That is variable when you sell a product. Does anybody have an idea of what maybe is not in your gross margin, but could vary with what you sell? An example?
Can you repeat the question?
In your gross margin is cost of sales. So my donut people, in their gross margin, their cost of sales is the flour, the sugar, the baking process. That's their cost. There is something else that is not in the gross margin, which is the variable expense. What would that
Labor?
be? There is some labor. Suppose your commissions, for instance. You have a salesman. That's commissions. It's typically not in your gross margin. It's in your contribution margin as a cost. It's a variable cost. The contribution margin considers beyond cost of sales. It considers all your variable costs. And I'm going to go through a slide that says what's your variable costs and what your fixed costs. Your fixed costs are those which do not change with the amount you sell. It's fixed. In other words, are you still going to pay? If you're still paying yourself, no matter what you sell, you're a fixed cost. If you have a salesperson that you pay on commission, that's a variable cost. Your retail establishment is a fixed cost. Your computer is a fixed cost. Your computer software could be a fixed cost. Anything that you need, regardless of whether you sold one thing or 100,000 things, is a fixed cost. Your variable costs are costs which vary, as the name says, with how much you sell. Okay? The idea is to understand your contribution margin. So as I said, it considers all variable costs. Okay? So example. Okay? If your variable cost, if your contribution cost, all the variable costs was 300,000 and your revenue was 500,000, your contribution margin is 200,000, right? So 200 divided by 500, right? That's 40%. And in this example, that's $20 per unit sold. So you're making $20 per unit sold. You're making 40%. So your contribution to offset your fixed costs is 40%, is $20. So you can calculate how many units you have to sell. I will get to that in 2 slides. But first, I want to talk a little bit and explain a little bit more what your variable costs are. So it is your direct materials, which are already in your cost of goods sold, direct labor, utilities. Typically, utilities, you might be, using more gas on the restaurant, right, to cook meals. Sales commissions, we talked about that. Shipping and freight, right? Well, you got to ship your product out. Credit card processing fees, the 5, 7, whatever they take. Advertising expenses, repair and maintenance. There's a whole long list that you can think of. What I'm going to ask you to do is take your P&L, put it into variable costs and fixed costs. How much variable costs do you have against your product sales? Fixed costs you have to spend if you had 0 sales. Fixed costs, rent is typically a fixed cost. Salaries. This is salaries for paid employees, like management, supervisors, possibly yourself, which are not going to vary depending on how many you sell. Insurance, you have to pay your insurance. They don't care what you sell. Depreciation is a fixed cost because your depreciation an asset over time. Interest expense, you got to pay the bank back the SBA loan. They don't care how many you sold. Licenses, permit, professional fees, software licenses, you got to buy Excel 360 and Microsoft doesn't care how much you sold. Now, so let's just say I got to go back and I'm not sure how to go back. Anybody?
There may be an arrow, the arrow keys.
The arrow keys, which I don't see.
No, on your
keyboard, click the
Oh, on my
arrow.
keyboard.
Mark,
Take a look.
actually, if you
Got
look
it.
at the screen where you're presenting, if you put your mouse over the
No, I got it.
presentation slide, there you have the arrows.
Yeah, I got the arrows. Okay, I'm back. Thank you very much. Okay. So going back to my original calculation, contribution margin, see if I was back here, right? Okay, now I'm here. A company that sells product with a contribution margin of $20 per unit. The company has fixed cost of $10,000, right? So the break-even point for the number of units you have to sell, and the units can be anything, right? It's revenue units. It's 10,000 divided by 20. My fixed costs are 10,000. I have to cover $10,000 a year or a month. If I cover more than 10,000, I'm making money. If I cover less than 10,000, I'm not. So I need, in this example, just to break even, 500 units a month to break even. Because 10,000 of fixed costs, I took all those fixed costs on the other page, added them up, it was 10,000. I know that every time I sell something, not my gross margin, but my contribution margin, which includes like commissions of the salesperson I had to sell, the shipping of the product to the consumer, and my marketing costs perhaps was $20 of profit, 500. Questions?
Yeah.
No? Yes.
Like in my case, that is just service. Like how that works.
You have a service gross margin and you have a service contribution margin. What is, I have a service, I have a warranty. Let's take warranty for instance. I sell a warranty for $100 a year. There is a mathematical thing that you can do is what is the cost of that to service that warranty? In average, you know, people look at the averages and say, I spend $60 a year because I got so many claims against that warranty. Therefore, every time I sell a $100 service contract, my expense on average, not for that particular customer, but on average is $60. Therefore, I make $40 every time I sell a warranty. Therefore, my contribution margin is $40 or 40%. You can say that, you know, the contribution is $40 or the contribution margin is 40%.
Yeah, but I sell a service that is maybe one time, you know, that is designed.
Yes, that's correct. You sell it to one time to one customer, right? But if you were to raise the price and lose customers, is that good? How many customers would you need to break even? Which is what I'm going to show you on the next page. Or you lower the price, how many customers do you need? It's dramatic when you raise or lower prices. The reason I'm going through this is because I want to show you the impact of raising and lowering prices.
But Mark,
Yeah.
raising prices, especially like right now with inflation, I mean, isn't it a good thing? Because if you go down too much, how are you profiting?
That's true. That's a very, very good point.
I'm ready to see the next slide. But
Exactly. I'm going to do a raising price and lowering price. Okay.
this is my weakness here. And until I can master this area, I don't feel like my business would succeed. So I really need help in this area.
Right. Well, you know, that's what they're saying. Pricing is everything. I mean, remember, I go back to the quotes. If you don't know your pricing, you can't control your pricing, forget it. And if you don't understand what your margin is, particularly your contribution margin, then you have no idea whether you're upside or, you know, right side, left side. Look at this case again. I had fixed costs of 10,000. Everybody contributed every unit I sold, whether it was a wig or a soap or whatever it is, or a service. On average, the number of customers I sold to on average contribute. Now, I may have different prices, but on average, the average customer, the average warranty, the average wig gives me $20 per unit. I have to sell 500 of them to break even, just to cover my costs. Now I'm going to increase the price. I go from $50 to $60. I increase the price. What happens to your contribution? Your contribution goes from $20 to $30 because there's no additional cost. You're paying the same commission, same gross margin. Typically, maybe commissions went up a little bit, but I didn't consider that. But basically, the cost was the same. So all that flowed into your contribution margin. So now it's $10,000 of fixed costs divided by 30 Now, instead of selling 500 units to break even, I only have to sell 333. Comments? No? So the point is, in the base case, I had to sell 500, but I raised the price $10. And now I got to sell 333. Well, that may be a good deal because I have less inventory I have to worry about. You know, I only have to sell 333 versus 500 to break even. Maybe that's worth it. Maybe it's not. Maybe you're at the upper limits of your price, you know, of your, maybe you can't charge $60. You could try, and then you could try and then discount it back with coupons. Now, here's dramatic. This is what is dramatic. Now, instead of adding $10, I decrease it, right? So instead of $20 per unit, 20 minus 10, because I decreased the price from 50 to 40, now I'm only making $10 per unit. I still have the same fixed cost. So now instead of 500 units I have to sell, because I took a $10 discount, right? I have to sell 1,000 units. I have to double the amount I sold. Interesting. You see what the power of this is? So when you do a pricing action, you really should understand. I like doing it, you know, if you don't know how many more you're going to sell, which a lot of us don't, right? Okay, if I increase the price, do I think I'm going to sell? How elastic or inelastic am I? Man, I don't know, you know, if I'm elastic or inelastic, I don't know exactly what that relationship is, but you can calculate the break even. And if you calculate the break even, you can kind of get a gut feel that says, I lowered it 10 cents, or $10. Am I really going to go from 500 to 1,000 units to break even and make the same amount? Man, that's a stretch. You see how you can use this tool by saying, is that something you should do, or something that you think you're not going to double it by lowering the price by $10. Now, this calculation is unique to you because it's unique to your contribution margin. If you know your contribution margin, then you can understand, run these various scenarios. I increase the price, what's my break even? If I lower the price, what's my break even? Do I think that's achievable? What happened 6 months ago when I gave the coupon? Oh, I gave a $10 coupon and I had 30% more sales. I thought that was great. Well, guess what? You needed 100% more sales to be great. So what is your contribution margin? What are your variable costs? And what are your fixed costs? You need to know that. Okay. So I still have half an hour, so we can do the extra credit. Oh boy. Any questions on what we just covered though? No? Okay, inventory turns. I talked about inventory turns. Inventory turns is basically the cost of goods sold divided by the average inventory. The average inventory is how much inventory did you have at the beginning of the year? What did you have at the end of the year, or the end of the period? It could be, you know, from January 1st to the end of, you know, the first quarter, divided by 2. That's your average inventory. Your inventory turns is then your cost of goods sold. Remember, we talked about what a cost of goods sold divided by your inventory turns. So if you have cost of goods sold of 500,000, you know, maybe you sold $1 million and your cost of goods sold for that million was 500, and your average inventory was $100,000. Your inventory turns is 5. Why do you need to know that? Because it's important. It's specific to your industry and your vertical. If you're this is why I say that it's important to know what you're making on your inventory. If you are a grocery store selling those cans of beans, you don't want a lot of inventory. You want a lot of inventory turns. You want to turn that can of beans, you know, 12 times a year. If you're in the meat department, you want to turn the side of beef every week, probably 50 times a year, right? if you're in a automobile car dealership, right? You have tons of inventory, right? Well, if you have tons of inventory, because you got to show different models and you're not turning the cars around, you're not making any money because you got tons of inventory and you got millions and millions of dollars tied up in the inventory. So you're not really making any money, even though you're selling cars, because you got tons of inventory and you're not, the efficiency of your business is what you're making on your inventory. Some of you don't have inventory. So some of you, this conversation may not apply to. But for those that did, it's an important concept. So inventory turns are specific to industry, retail 6 to 8 times. Grocery stores are higher, 10 to 12. Jewelry stores, by the way, and I have a jeweler as a client, you know, they don't turn a lot, but 2 to 4 times is about right. You know, wholesale industry, well, they want really high, they want 12%. Manufacturing 2 to 4, e-commerce. E-commerce can turn a lot. They don't have brick and mortar, you know, and if you can do just-in-time inventory and you're selling online, you can do tons of inventory turns because you have very, very little inventory. That's the importance of inventory turns. But the other important part of it is gross margin return on investment, which is basically gross profit now divided by inventory, right? And it's important for your pricing strategy. It's the effectiveness of your inventory management and balancing between investment and profitability and your pricing strategy so that you get the right balance. It's gross profit divided by inventory. If you, for instance, I'm going to go through an example. It's called GMROI. It's gross margin return on investment. So your revenue is 200 and the cost of goods sold is 160. The beginning inventory is 50 and the ending inventory is 60. So what's the average inventory? Anybody? Well, it's down there. Average inventory is the beginning inventory plus the ending inventory divided by 2. The average inventory was 55, right? Your gross profit was you sold 200,000 of something. Your cost of goods sold was 120. That's 80. Your gross margin return on investment was 80 over 55 or 1.45. In other words, for every dollar in inventory, you made $1.45. Think of it that way. For every dollar you bought in inventory, you made $1.45.
Is that not too low, Mark?
Well, everything's different. You know, here's some more examples I won't go through, but if you want to go through the math, you can. It kind of depends, you know, what your turns are. But the higher turns you have, the lower gross margin you can have. But you're turning it over many, many times. It's velocity in some businesses. You know, I can be selling, you know, a lot of product. You know, I just don't want to keep product on the shelf because then my you know, it's a lot of cash that you have tied up in inventory, and it's the effectiveness of your sales and your pricing. That's why I'm saying in the end, it's about cash. You know, yes, revenue is great, profit is even better, and cash is king. And they say that people who really understand the financials and how your business works, it's at the end, it's what was my return on my investment? What did you do? I put money in inventory, I put money in the processes, I put money in the business, and I want a return on it. Cash is king. So you have to think of your business holistically and think about what business you're in, how much if you're in this business. Now, obviously, if you're in a service business, it's sort of different, right? Less applicable to you. But that's the calculation that we went through. So here's some other examples. I don't think I need to go through all the examples, right, that we have here, but this will be in the package. So you asked, is it important? Well, these, you know, is it low or high? So considering your question, this is kind of the answer to it. It depends, as every answer says, what industry are you in? So if you're in the retail industry, 3 is good or higher. If you're in the high-end fashion, 4 is better, right? Wholesale, 4 is good for most wholesale businesses. Manufacturing is 2. Why is manufacturing 2? Because they got tons of production and they got tons of inventory in the production cycle, right? E-commerce is 4 or higher, it would be good. So those are some examples of you know, where you need to be on GM ROI, gross margin return on investment. I know it's maybe a little difficult concept. I brought you through a lot today, right? And I brought you from really down into financial measurements. I'm really big on measuring, and then testing and seeing where you are, you know, and having the right measurements for your business so that you can manage your business. And yes, it's about pricing, but you got to think pricing is a holistic calculation and thought process and strategy. From how are you pricing, whether you're cost plus or you're competitive or you're value added. Very few of us are get into, I only deal in gasoline, and when there's a crisis, I make tons of money, or paper towels during COVID. So excluding that one, and then maybe you can have a mix of pricing strategies, right? As I said, we did competitive pricing strategy and compared ourselves to competition, but then we added 10% for the value of the name. I mean, the value of who we thought we were and the service we delivered. This just wasn't Xerox as a name, but it was what we thought our position in the market should be. But, you know, it also affects everything else. And I showed you the contribution margin calculations and how powerful that is. And it doesn't, whatever, you do have a product that you price. And you do have a contribution margin for that product. And whether you charge 10% more or 10% less, are you covering your fixed costs? How many more deals do you have to do? How many more construction contracts do you have to do if you charge 10% more? How many more warranties do you have to sell? Questions?
I do have a question, Mark. Consider that in some industries, the pricing of the fees are kind of established by the I don't know how to say this in English, like by the association, like of all of us, for example, in videography. So there's a standard fees for videographers, producers, grips, production assistants, whatever. So the pricing is already set, and it has boundaries in time, the time rates, the shooting day, like how many hours. It's a standard. So basically, what in the places that we can play with prices are in the above the line fees, which is director, executive producing, fees like that. And the margin is also established, like how the percentage of the profit is something that is standard too. So I wonder if there is any room to play when you have an industry that has like those standardized rates and fees.
Okay, so when I was at Xerox, we hired McKinsey Company. You know, long time ago. The average junior McKinsey Company person at that time was making $1,000 a day. If you wanted a junior partner, it was $2,000, and then it went up from there, right? I could absolutely hire a consultant less than $1,000 a day with an MBA, not out of Harvard, right? So yes, it's established, but McKinsey Company has Saatchi and Saatchi. You know, just going to go to Saatchi and Saatchi to do my advertising or my marketing because it's Saatchi and Saatchi. The other day, we were trying to tell you things to establish yourself as the value. Remember we said nobody does it like we do it?
Yeah.
That's a premium. Where do you charge that premium? Now, if you have to go through line item by line item and justify everything, you know, the grip cost me $20, I'm charging you 24. You know, the video guy cost me $30 an hour, I'm charging you 36. If you're going through that kind of line item detail, then you are not establishing a premium position. You're establishing a competitive position. You're establishing a Walmart position where you're competing on price. You
Yeah,
gotta
no.
get to the situation where Saatchi & Saatchi is like, I go to McKinsey because they're McKinsey. I go to Saatchi & Saatchi because they're Saatchi & Saatchi. Because they are the cream of the crop. People come to you because because nobody, remember we had a little saying yesterday?
Yep.
Nobody does it like we do it.
Yes, and that's the way that I am trying to go. But what I'm thinking is like the final price is determined by the value. So you have the standardized rates, but then we can play with the above the line and with the profit margin, I guess. And offering.
Yes, if you're outlining every single price on every single thing and the quote has to have that, then that's difficult.
Yes, sometimes it depends. Sometimes they ask for a detailed budget. Sometimes it's just one amount.
Right, if it's one amount, then you just add 10% more and you say, nobody does it like us, and let me show you why. And you've got to turn the conversation to that, not here's line item, we hired the grip for 2 hours. Then you're down in the, you know, fighting it out on who gets the cheapest grip.
Okay.
And it's like Walmart fighting it out with Target on who has the best toothpaste price.
Yes, no, I understand.
What do you suggest for like when we are service industries and then we want to hire out? How do we include the like what we pay our service people for their services versus like the price margin?
Those services, if you have to hire out, what you do for services are in your contribution costs. They're a variable cost, so they go into the equation.
Okay.
Anything that's variable, when you have to hire somebody out for that job or anything, goes into your variable costs. Anything that's variable varies with the job. If I have to do this to get the job, then it's a variable cost. If I have to pay for this independent of the job, like the lease on the office space, then it's fixed. And the variable costs need to go into the contribution cost so you can calculate your contribution margin. The contribution margin says, what are you really making on every single sale? The gross margin just takes you down the P&L so far, which says, you know, it's cost of goods sold, but it doesn't include commissions. It doesn't include all these other items that you had to spend to really sell or complete the service. Okay, let's continue. Oh, let's get fit. Adriana, here's your picture again. So what I want to do is exercise 1, right? Explain your pricing strategy. Are you cost competitive? How do you do it? I mean, you are doing it. You have a price for your services because you're in business. How did you set a price? Can you provide an example? You don't have, just provide an example. And think about, are you elastic or are you inelastic? Is demand going to increase more or less than the percentage of price? It's the percent of demand over percent in price change. If you're above 1, you're elastic. If you're lower than 1, you're inelastic. That's exercise 1. Questions on that? Okay, exercise 2, what is your contribution margin and what are your yearly fixed costs? If you have a P&L, it's in your P&L. All you got to do is go through all the expense items in your P&L and say fixed, variable, variable, fixed. You got to understand what your fixed costs and what your variable costs are. Your contribution then is the product achieved price, not the retail price, but the price you really get minus the variable cost to sell the product, and you can express that as a percentage. Homework exercise 3. What product revenue do you need to offset your fixed costs? Your fixed costs are $50,000. This is just an example to follow so that you can substitute your numbers. Your fixed cost is $50,000. Your product sells for $10. Your contribution margin is 40% or $4 per unit. Therefore, you had $6 of variable expense. $10 less 6 equals 4. So you have to sell 12,500 units, right? 12,500 units times $4, right, is going to give you $50,000. So the equation is 50,000 divided by 0.4, which is your contribution margin, equals 125,000. If you have to sell 125,000 and each product sells for $10, that means you have to sell 12,500 units to break even, just to break even. Does it make sense? This is the same exercise we went through up above that I was showing you. Yeah? It's just knowing your fixed, knowing your variable, and doing the calculation. Then I'm going to say, as you guess, you increase the price by 20%. What does your revenue have to be? So your baseline in the other example was 125,000, $10 per unit, 12,000, 40% fixed cost, you are at break even. You raise the price 20%, so you're now selling at $12 per unit. You added $2. Therefore, your contribution is now $6. It went from 4 to 6 because the extra $2 went right into profit. Your profit was 40% in the example. Now it's 50% or $6 because it's 6 over $12 because you're selling it, so it's 50%. So your contribution margin is now not 40%, it's 50%. So $50,000 of fixed divided by 0.5 equals 100,000. You're selling each unit at $6 times 8,333 units equals $50,000 because you're selling it at 12. So before you had to sell 12,500 units. Now you have to sell 8,333 units because you raised the price by 20%. You can sell less. Then you ask yourself, is that reasonable? Do I feel good that if I raise it 20%, I only need to sell 8,333 units at $12 versus at $10, I need to sell 12,500 units. Now, I just chose 20% to be more dramatic. Now, in real life, you might say 5% or 10% and do the calculations. But for your example, I just want you to use 20. Homework exercise 5, you can already guess. You decrease your price by 20%. So the baseline is the same example, $125,000, $10 a unit, bullet 1. Bullet 2, now you took the $10 price, reduced it to $8. Now, so you knocked $2 off the price, which flowed right through your contribution. It's only $2. It went from $4 to $2, right? Now you have to, so the contribution margin is 25% because it's 2 over 8 is 25%. Now it's 50,000 divided by 0.25. You have to sell $200,000. And since you're selling the units at, you have to sell 25,000 units. Because each unit is only contributing $2. So 25,000 units times $2 equals 50,000. Questions?
I have a question, Mark. So to apply this exercise to service,
Yeah.
I think I can do it in two ways. Let me know which one to use for the
Sure.
home. Like one is just to pick one service that we offer and standardize for the purpose of the exercise.
Yeah.
The other one is backwards, like to see to break even, I need to make a year at least this amount. And then if that increases 20% or decreases, or like if to break even, I need to make X amount a year. And then
Right.
I will need to sell X amount of services. And then,
If you lower your prices by 20%, you need to sell more services.
yes,
If you increase your price by 20%, if you can sell less units. And what I mean by units in your business, it's less engagements, less videos. I mean, if you can say, just make it up, you say the average video I do, I collect, $5,000, whatever it is, whatever
Yes.
that unit is you're selling.
Okay, so we take a standard for the purpose of the
You can do it either way, whatever you think is easier, but I think you got to do it the latter way. You would understand your business a little bit better. If you just
Yeah,
say, I made, I have so much fixed cost, how much revenue do I have to
yes.
bring in if my margin is 40%?
Yes, that what makes sense. If I need to make at least, for example, $100,000
Yeah.
a year.
I did it on break even.
Yes, to break even, exactly.
Yeah, which means I'm covering my fixed costs.
Yes.
I'm not making any profit, but at least I cover my fixed costs.
Yes.
Now, you could do it on fixed costs plus 10% and say, well, I really got to make a 10% net margin. So, you could do it different ways. In reality, I just made it easy to standardize it. I just did it on fixed costs.
Okay.
But you could say fixed cost plus 20% because I want 20% profit. Then how many units do I have to sell? If baseline, and if I want a 50% margin, contribution margin, how many units, what's my revenue have to be? And then if I lower my contribution, every job I do is only going to give me, if the average job gives you $5,000, how many more jobs do I have to do if the average job, because I lowered my prices to that I only get $4,000 per job?
Yeah, it's how many clients do I need to close?
Yeah, that's sort of the deal. Yeah, how many clients do I need if I lower my prices and I'm more competitive? I typically get 5,000. Now I'm only going to get 4,000 because I'm more competitive. I lowered my prices. How many more clients do I need?
Okay.
If my typical contribution is 5,000 and I raise my prices to 6, then I need less clients. And will the market value my services because I'm the one and only? Nobody does it like us. And if I lose a few customers, it's okay. This basically says if I lose a few customers, hey, I can lose some customers and make the same amount of money. And in some cases, that's okay. Particularly if you have inventory, if you got processes, I can hire less people, I have less overhead, but I'm making the same amount of money with less headaches.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, is volume always good? Well, volume is always good, but at what price? In other words, if you lose one job out of 10 and you say, yeah, because we're premium, you don't want to work for us? I don't care because my prices are higher for the other 9 people. And I can afford to lose you.
Thank you.
Other questions? No, this is an easy, I mean, did I lose you all or?
Is everybody clear with the exercises?
Yes,
to
it's
us.
making us think of, we
Yes.
increased our pricing over the past few months, and it's making us think of how much money we left on the table, but also how we need to look at our sales strategy and our pricing strategy for our various customers. Thank you, Mark. This was really, really informative.
Yeah, okay. Well, we'll have time in the office hours too. Adriana?
Any other question, comment? Don't worry, we wanted to make sure you have it clear. Everybody's okay for the exercise? Questions?
Yeah, well, for us, is we provide a service. So I guess, well, instead of units well, we have properties. It's depending on the number of properties that we have.
Manage, right.
So that's why what I understand. We don't have like we work from home, but of course we will have to, like, I guess, calculate like I don't know, the internet, time, I don't know what else, what
The other cost.
the other costs that we can calculate.
It sounds like you probably have very low fixed costs.
Yes, we do.
It sounds like
very low
almost
fixed.
90% is in variable costs.
Right.
Unless you're taking a salary out of the business, then that's fixed.
Well, we pay a person that is in charge of operations and is,
vendors.
yeah, and it's 40% of what we make. That's the like
So
the,
that's variable, or part of it's variable and part of it's fixed. I mean, it's
Right.
not an exact science, by the way.
right. We understand. Yes.
Mark, but I think that when you work from home and you have a service, your rent or whatever you pay, it has to come out of the business, because it's part of your salary. So
Right, so it's fixed.
it's fixed, it's fixed because you have to pay your bills. You don't
Right.
have
That's
other
what I'm
income.
saying. Salaries for owners are usually fixed, although I know some owners that if they're having a bad quarter will adjust their salaries. And say, well, I really can't take the distribution this month. So part of it could be fixed and part of it could be variable.
Mhm.
If you say, my bonus might be variable, or my distribution, or I take a salary of 50,000, but every quarter I take out 5,000 depending on the business. So 50,000 is fixed and the 5,000 is variable because it varies with the business. I mean, it could be a mix.
Mhm.
If you're paying commissions or anybody that gets paid by the amount of work they do to bring in business or to manage the business, that's kind of variable.
I have a question for Felipe, Tania, and Angela. How do you sell, and do you have expenses related to those sales? Let's call it sales and marketing. Your services companies, how do you sell, and do you have expenses associated, fixed or variable?
Okay.
At this time, we mainly what we have done until today is mainly referrals and clients from our real estate business.
So referrals, you have commissions or something like that?
We are starting. Yes,
Referral program.
Yeah, we're starting a referral program with realtors.
Okay, so there you would have a cost, right?
Yes. There we will have a cost. Yes.
Okay.
A reference program, we're giving them something for referrals would be variable.
Right.
Okay. And Angela, how do you sell?
Okay, right now I've been having like referrals, but not in a program. It's like somebody says, hey, Angela, can design you this, can design you that. That's one part. And the other part is being the general contracting services. So we have like two. One is the people that call us because they want to do a house. Like right now, we are building a house that we are gonna sell. So we just did design and we are building. So we are kind of organizing like everything, from scratch. Right now it's been the way that we have been moving.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Adriana, do you want to do a roundtable here on the one, let's share?
Yeah, let me say one thing before. Everybody's clear on which office hours you are?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Please, try to go to your own office hours, because sometimes what happens is we end with too many people on Tuesdays. We organize it in a way that is split. If you need to change the day, just let me know to see if there is someone that can swap. Okay? So this is a huge favor. Okay, so what are your takeaways from today? Let's see. What is something that you feel you learned today that is different?
When we first started Beloved Box, we realized that we left a lot of money on the table.
So much money.
And so this today taught us not to do that again if we choose to start a new business, and how to just I guess fix I guess the mistakes from 7 years ago and just moving forward now.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay,
Well,
okay.
Yeah, Angela, go ahead.
Okay, for me, it's like a headache. It's like, first, I have to think how many projects do I have to do a year, to pay my salary. That's one thing. And the other thing is, if I'm growing and I'm going to have the people that is going to be working on the medias and sales, I have to consider their salary. It's like do a bucket, to see how much do I need to be selling per year. Maybe I have to be like splitting design and construction, because maybe I will have more time to do design than construction. So I have to move in different ways each service. So it's like, I have to think really about that.
Perfect. Thank you. Who else?
For me, it was very informative, and I think it will be very challenging because my way to calculate pricing, it was more for observation, comparing about how is the cost of consulting on the course, or to have more technical approach to the pricing. I think it's very, very important that, and I have a huge work this week. Thank you.
Thank you. Who else is taking something from today that you didn't have before?
I think it's going to be a very fun office hours, Adriana and Mark, next Tuesday. Get ready.
Yes.
For me, I think it's sorry, Adriana.
Go ahead.
For me, I think it's embracing the premium mindset, and try to get the pricing and to the value that we already offer. But it's a matter of the mindset, of the believing behind that.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. That pyramid is very, very valuable to consider.
For me, this is Marilyn. I think I'm gonna have to do a very detailed cost analysis for the product, because the fact that I have a brick and mortar and e-commerce, while it was presented separately, I have to find a way that works and also consider other factors in the area, like the lack of the traffic in the physical store, and maybe how to just put my efforts in other areas, or curate cost plus products that I can have that margin in there to play with.
Thank you, Marilyn.
So you're welcome.
No, sorry, I cut you short. What were you going to say? So what?
No, I said thank you. I said thank you. That's fine.
Thank
So I'm
you.
just gonna, yeah, all right.
Anybody else?
I think, like Angela said, is like a headache for us. That normally we sell a lot of hardware, and I think that we don't have in our calculations a lot of cost that Mark was mentioned. We normally put like just like okay, the cost of this telephone is like $50, so we need to add like a 15%, and that's it. And like a very, in Spanish we say olímpico, ¿cómo se dice? Like a very, in a very easy way.
Casual way.
We just put like a margin and that's it. But we need to have in mind a lot of things right now, and we need to analyze our pricing strategy. So thank you, Mark.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Mark, thank you very much. Anybody else?
I learned that I could either be elastic or inelastic, and then the type of pricing that I am, versus competitive or the sliding scale variable. And then before even knowing if I'm breaking even, I need to know what my fixed costs and my variable costs are. And then from knowing my variable costs, knowing what my contributing costs would be, so that I can know the margins associated with that. So yeah, I got a lot to think about.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much. So Mark, thank you. We really appreciate very much this
Well, thank
class.
you, and I'll see everybody during the office hours.
And yeah, everybody will be really pleased with the exercises. If you have questions, Mark, do you want to leave maybe your email? So in case they
Yeah, it's in the presentation up front.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, it's in both presentations.
So if you have questions and you feel you need to type a message to Mark, please do so. And so we will see you. Remember, their office hours Monday at 11, Tuesday at 11 and 3 p.m. And on Wednesday, we will meet for class. We will be talking about business models and innovation. Clementina, go ahead.
Yes, just a reminder, I just put the link for the survey. If you have not completed the survey, please